Welcome on this channel, on our YouTube channel. My name is Annie Koloko. I am an immigration attorney, and we are happy to see you. Of course, we already started with the TikTok team. Of course, you are more than welcome to actually join our live where we talk about breaking news as far as also team and things that affect you in any question related to immigration, of course. We today are continuing, of course, this immigration question and answer. We started talking about the travel ban because this was issued this week and is still ongoing, of course. But there is a side that we have not touched about is actually what does that mean for employers? Because there are some of you who actually are being sponsored by your employer. If you're being sponsored by your employer, then how does the travel ban play into it? Yes, because that's the part they're not talking about. That's the part that is not talk about too much because people talk more about people trying to enter the United States, maybe with a visitor visa, we talk about that, or maybe, through asylum. But there are some people who are actually getting into the country, of course, looking for to start a life here as employee. Now, if you're the talent, if you are a business, what do you need to know? What does your employer need to know as far as we're talking about, the travel ban? How does that affect people who are actually seeking to move to the United States on this particular type of visa? Now, as we know that 12 countries have a full visa ban, right? As a reminder, Afghanistan, Iran, Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. Those 12 countries have a full visa ban, okay? Then you have 7 additional countries that have partial restriction, and that's Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Okay, and those countries, they cannot receive actually what is called a permanent immigrant visa, meaning, for example, somebody who come here and they will have a permanent status, right? And then, of course, and either tourist visa, B1, B2, or student visa, okay? But work visa can still be issued in limited case, right? But that will be through waiver granted on a case-by-case basis, meaning that it's not going to be as you can imagine, and they will have period of validity that will be much shorter. Very important to know. Now, you have to understand, for example, if you are in the healthcare industry, if you are an immigrant healthcare worker, right, coming from Iran, Afghanistan, Haiti, you are essential to the United States medical system. Despite the full ban that you've seen, you still, will be allowed to move to the United States because there is a shortage, but they will want you to serve is what is called underserved and rural area. That's always been, the way it's done. Meaning Iranian doctor, most of the time they enter to the United States through the J1 visa, and then they obtain for the residency, fellowship, whether it's in medicine, psychiatry, cardiology, and they go and serve in high-end region facing physician shortage. That's not going to change. Afghan and Haitian national are represented also. We see in elder care, home health services, hospital support, right? For example, nursing assistant, you will see medical aid. This sector have a shortage. I mean, that has not changed. Meaning that the travel ban, obviously, that will be a strain. And probably we do expect that because those are work visa, they will be exempt from this, right? But they will have to make the application. They will have to go through the process. There will be a waiver in order for them to move to the United States because it's just the need is there, right? Now, what about tech and STEM, right? Technology and STEM. What about that? But of course, US tech company always need international talent. That we know is not new. Of course, they do depend heavily. Oh yes, you just open the, go online and you will see. Now, in this field, for example, AI, engineering, and cybersecurity, as an aside, Iranian national make up a large share of the PhD candidate, right? I mean that you see them in PhD program, postdoctoral research program, computer science, electrical engineering, data science, of course, this is very important also for the United States, right? Meaning that, of course, all of these visas, right, like H-1B and F-1 and OPT program, the employers may actually have to put in context that it's going to take longer, right, for their employees to get those visas just because they are citizens of those countries who are on the list, right? And then, of course, the onboarding, obviously, all of travel for work. For example, if you want your employee to travel for work and then you know that the citizen of a country that has a ban, then you can imagine that it's going to have repercussion, of the ability of the employee to be able to travel, of course, right? And then also that create uncertainty because you want to be able to know, okay, I want to onboard my employees. This person is going to start on this day. They're going to be able to carry their mission and so on and so forth. It's going to be much more complicated. Now, education and research, obviously the travel ban threatened also university. And then we've seen that they've been a big, really something like a big conflict between the administration and then the Ivy, like obviously such a Harvard, right? It's going to disrupt that for sure, right? And then we see, and that's going to, of course, target faculty, researcher, graduate student, especially from countries like Iran, Cuba, Libya, and Myanmar, right? But at the same time, that's going to be also something that can affect the United States itself, because you're going to see those departments, they're going to have staffing gaps. They're going to have shortage here, because you have any medical research. I mean, you have to understand that most of medical research has been found actually in the university. Like you just look it up, you just go, for example, Harvard and all the discoveries that have been made, meaning that it is not something to be taken lightly. Of course, a lot of people seeing this particular climate, when you're talking about student, international student, they will definitely be a little bit wary of coming here, specifically if we're talking about this travel ban and all the hurdle that they have to go through. They may be just been turning away and find other country, and there are other countries who are trying actually to step in and offer themselves as an alternative. For example, Canada has been offering, the EU, the European Union is there, meaning that, yeah, we have also Hong Kong, meaning that has been going as well, right? And of course, what about skilled trade, right? Because skilled trade and manufacturing is also something that use a lot of immigrant force. And most of the people working in there as, machinists, welder, technician, they come from communities such as Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo. They are the ones who have developed actually these particular skills in states like Michigan, Ohio, Texas, right? And they do contribute to industrial workforce, meaning this is something also that will have, and they are sponsored through family-based immigration, and those now are blocked up to certain measure, right? And then, of course, we have to see agriculture, essential service, meaning that this is something that has been coming, like when they look at it, they start talking about it. The agriculture, Texas and Florida starting to feel the heat, right? It's one thing to have people deported, but now you have to replace those workers, and that's going to be more challenging to find people who will be willing, actually to replace them and just, perform those duties. For example, you will have hospitality, agriculture, cleaning services, right? And most of the people working in those sectors are people who have a TPS, a temporary protected status, right? States like Florida, Texas, and New York, Haitian workers actually, feel a good part of this particular, job, especially in hospitality and building maintenance, meaning that now, if the travel ban apply as it has been enacted, then that will actually disrupt the pipelines, right? It's going to be harder for employer to retain even the current worker, because if you find yourself, you don't even have, a legal status, of course, and even to bring new worker, right? That's going to be very complicated, because most of them, specifically in the agricultural sector, they will use that strategically and you will have the worker come during the peak seasonal period, right? And you already have labor, because think about it. When you're about agriculture, there is a shortage, right, of people who will be willing to work. Now, what will be the impact on hiring and retention? Hiring ban, it means that the 12 fully banned country, it's impossible, of course, to have somebody coming from that country and come work in the United States. I mean, the employer is going to have to find other solution, and that's going to be hard. But on the other hand, if you are actually on the list of partially restricted country, yes, the employer can still push the application and then see how they can offer visa, right? But the thing is going to be limited in scope, it's going to be limited in validity, and that's on purpose, or that's by design. Now, also, there is a risk, like I said earlier, if you are an employee, citizen of those particular country with partial restriction, you may have some issue returning upon your travel, even if it's work travel or either personal travel, even if you have a valid visa. It creates a lot of uncertainty, that's for sure, right? And then, of course, you have to expect there's going to be delay and denial, long processing time, right? Increased scrutiny and more visa denial, because of course, that's actually, you have in the background the idea that people who are citizens of this country have not been fully vetted, right? Meaning that's basically what that is. Now with what we can learn and what we know, you have to be ready. Because this is not the first travel ban, right? This is not the first travel ban, meaning that basically most of company, what they did and what company need to do is to basically have what is called legal readiness. Like, this is the time, whether it's for a person, somebody on the personal level or somebody who actually is representing a company, they need to be ready. And that's what they did in 2017, right? They had a legal team into work, making sure to have the employee being able to return to the United States, to adjust their visa status and so on and so forth. Meaning this is the part where legal immigration audit is very important to see exactly what are the needs, what's going on. See, for example, now with the travel ban, there need to be a reassessment and immigration audit, in this company, with these employers, because to see who needs what, right? And if you don't have that, then what are we doing, right? Now, of course, you have to avoid, like everything in life, nothing in life is ever predictable, right? You have to imagine that you have to plan for the disruption, because you know that it will be, for example, employee from Iran and Syria, they could be stranded as we speak, because that's the part that people may not be aware of. You may see people, as the travel ban was issued, like it was the last time, people were literally on work trip. Now they're stuck, right? Because they cannot return. Meaning this is definitely will be something, of course, that they will have to manage, but that will be obviously something that may occur. For example, Google created a 4 million crisis fund in 2017. 4 million. And that was to assist the employees, the affected employees and their family, right? Meaning that every employer, they protect them, so they actually plan this differently, but this is something where you cannot be in a reactive mode all the time. You have to be able to be proactive, to plan this, and to definitely move forward, right? Also, you have to understand that, of course, you need to be able to also spearhead any legal challenge. And that's why those big tech companies like Apple, Facebook, Netflix, right? They did submit legal brief. They challenged the law, right? Because that's the thing. After people being shot, those also people affected are real people. The legal challenge, actually, because the administration will have to justify before the court what is the legal reasoning to have a travel ban, right? To say that, okay, it's related to the national security, is going to have to be more detailed than that, of course, right? And then one thing for sure, you have to see also, people also, this is in a how they call that, in time of crisis, people are defined, reputation are defined on how you reacted to the crisis. You may be tempted actually to cower, right? Your reputation, even as an employer, your reputation, even as a company, that will be actually reflected the way you handle, and on which side the history actually you stood. Meaning, Very important, okay? Meaning what employer can do now, make sure that you review your workforce, who actually is affected by that. It's very important. You guys working for somebody, that's very important. They're going to have to adjust hiring plan, of course, right? Meaning that they're going to have to hire from people who are citizen of country not on that list, because that's the way it is, right? Or they can also consider like work and remote option for those who are actually on a list of banned country. That's or maybe even relocating their employees to other countries, of course, and of course, you want to seek legal counsel, right? And I keep telling you guys, it's very important to have a lawyer. Because why an immigration lawyer? Because you want to explore what is the alternative, what can I do, where can I go? This is very important, right? Yep. And also you want to make sure that, okay, you are staying compliant with the law, because the last thing you need as a company is to find yourself, being accused of, obviously, not respecting the law. And then, of course, but one thing for sure, it's this new travel ban, is historically, one of the most expensive. But it doesn't mean that at this point it's going to be, it won't be able. There is nothing that can be done, that you can just be completely defeated. No, meaning that's things that can be done. But one thing for sure, you have to prepare for things that you cannot. You have to prepare as much as you can. You want to make sure that you know what are the law. You want to make sure what are your rights. You want to see exactly what can be changed, on the government level, in the court, and so on and so forth. But this is how actually you have people who are employee and employers. This is how the travel ban may affect them. But I'm going to answer some questions. For those of you who want to ask questions, make sure that you share the live, that you tap. Of course, you need to do that, right? Eve, thank you so much, because I see some heart. For those of you who are on YouTube, then the heart are super necessary. Leila, hello. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. All right. Sarah said, does it affect the country get travel ban, the fiancé visa? This question actually is not very clear. Is it affect the country get travel ban? I guess you probably must be, does it affect the country? Okay, with a travel ban. Okay, and here I think you have a fiancé visa. It was approved, and you're probably thinking, okay, will that be actually the fiancé visa? There are some exemption to the travel ban, and the exemption to travel ban, they say, obviously, U.S. permanent resident, aka green card holder, then children and spouse of U.S. citizen, right? Meaning that's not very clear, because if you're not a U.S. and child, that may be a fiancé will not be considered as such. But it may be, taken on a case-by-case basis, but your best bet will be to have marriage, right? And then that's actually the best bet. Somebody asking question, the best option to apply for asylum by myself or a lawyer. This is a question that only you can decide. Nobody can tell you. Some people will never, ever apply for anything before immigration without the assistance of a lawyer. Some other people will decide that they want to do that. Probably what you need to do is to get a consultation with a lawyer. That way you can assess your option, and then at the end you make your decision and you move forward. Okay. Someone say advice for I-130 485 interview. Okay, I'm not really sure what advice do you want, because the I-130 and the 485 is probably based on marriage, right? And then you say for adjustment of status, the advice for the interview you need. I always tell my client, if your marriage is genuine, you shouldn't have any problem. I'm telling you, that's the truth. If your marriage is genuine, it will go. Because they will be asking you questions about yourself, about your marriage, things that people assuming that married people have. For example, do you have the proof that you live together, that you're commingling assets, right? Okay, do you know about each other family? Things that if it's a real relationship, you will have no problem answering those questions. Meaning that's what I will tell you. Okay, is the GV lottery program concerned by the travel ban? I'm a winner of the GV lottery. they actually did indicate U.S. permanent resident, meaning that the analysis of that will be somebody who's a DV lawyering program. You can only become a U.S. permanent resident once you actually go through the interview. Then they stamp your passport. Probably you may not be, but we will see how the embassy and consulate they do interpret this particular exemption. Ibrahim said, I have an appointment with ICE tomorrow. I need some advice. I don't know what advice can we tell you. If you have an appointment, what is your status here? Are you in removal proceedings? Do you have like an application before USCIS, maybe an affirmative asylum application? Then you go there, make sure that you have your receipt. Even though with your A number, they probably can see in the system exactly where you are, right? Meaning that I'm not really sure what to tell you, but I will say share your location with a family member or friend. That way you don't, if something happened, then at least you are ready, all right? They know exactly where to find you. And then, of course, if you find yourself in detention, don't think that is the end of the road. It's harsh. The conditions are harsh, right? But the more people know where you are, they won't be able to call you. If you ever find yourself in detention, you will have to call them, right? But they will be able to track you to see where you are. And then if you have any application that is pending, at least that will justify, right? That what will it put you in detention? Most of the people that are put in detention, a good number of people are actually being released. But of course, it's not immediate, and it's sometimes you may feel that it's random. If you also be careful, for those of you encounter of the police, right? Any encounter of the police, do you have the proof? For example, if you have a parking ticket, was it dismissed? Even though we've seen instances where even that there was something going on over there, right? Meaning that, let's see, that's what I can tell you at this point. For all those of you who are going to ICE and are very concerned, and also if you have family here in the United States, you have to make sure that you have plans in place, right? Just in case, if you think, okay, this is what's going to happen, that will be the suggestion. But it depends also, what did you find? Where are you on the system, right? Because if your application is still pending and they have not decided on your application, it's an affirmative asylum application, then you will be, but the thing not to do is to fail to appear at the ICE appointment, because if you do that, then that's a problem. Because now you actually fail to appear at the ICE, and then of course you're going to be, they're going to start looking for you, and you may even end up in detention, because they will actually draw the conclusion that you are a flight risk, and then you end up in detention. Meaning that's something that's a little bit complicated, but if you see that makes sense. Of course, if you have a lawyer, then your lawyer should be able to assist you, right? And then tell you exactly, even sometimes come with you. And when the lawyer come with you, that could be very helpful, because they can clarify things, right? Yeah. Then they can clarify, they can do things, and then go from there. Okay. Now, also be careful, because of course, if you find yourself, if you have a lawyer, why don't you ask that question to your lawyer? You need to ask the question to your lawyer. You need to ask to share your concern with your lawyer, right? You have to, because that's basically what the lawyer can do. They can explain to you, and of course, they need to go. They can decide to go with you based on what you guys want to do, and sure, no problem. But be careful about that. Okay. All right. Meaning, thank you so much. I don't know whether I don't see any more questions. I know it's Friday. Just jump in and see if you guys have a few questions. If you have questions, no problem. Just be aware that ICE is actually stepping up arrest again, because again, they have this 3,000 quota that they need to meet, right? Now, they say that they can arrest bystander without a warrant. Of course, that will be challenged in court, because it's not something that is actually permitted by the court. Now, over the weekend, Madame Noem and with the White House advisor Stephen Miller, then they urge all these agencies to have to increase the daily arrest to 3,000. With 3,000, I think they calculated probably, over 10 days at 30,000 and so on. And so meaning that in a month, you're almost reaching 100,000 people, and in a year, then you see where we're going with that. Basically that's that. Meaning that, be careful, because this is something that's actually in the work, right? And then of course it's we have to see, then of course, as you know, the Supreme Court actually allow the administration to revoke parole for 500,000 Venezuela, Cuban, Haitian, and Nicaraguan. Meaning that even though the previous court, like the lower court, actually blocked the policy, it went in front of the Supreme Court, right? And the people who were actually in this particular class were actually, they entered the United States under an urgent humanitarian program under the Biden administration, right? Meaning that now, what does that mean? It means that the people who are in that particular class, they are vulnerable to deportation, of course, because even though the challenges are continuing, they are vulnerable, and they will have to be very careful, right? Meaning that's, that will be something. Okay, Zoshi says, if someone is a resident for more than 40 years and working with residency and fail to pass the citizenship, will they be deported? No, they will not be deported. In order for you to be deported, they're going to have to cancel your residency, right? You're a permanent resident. That's a great question. It means that you will have to actually be referred to immigration court. You have to be put in what is called removal proceedings. Now, once you put in removal proceedings, then guess what? Now you're in front of the judge, and the government's going to have to articulate why. And it's not because you failed to pass the citizenship test that it's a sufficient reason for you to get into removal proceedings. However, of course, you have to be careful. Everything that includes fraud, misrepresentation, obviously crimes, right? These can land you in removal proceedings. That's for sure. For sure. Thank you so much, Megbian. Thank you so much for the heart. Mental African, okay. You guys can, for those people who want to reach out of our firm, then the phone number, for people watching on TikTok, you have to look on the picture. You will see the phone number, otherwise send us a direct message, a DM. Thank you so much, Megbian, for the gift badge. I see number 3, number 2, number 1, and the roses. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is much appreciated. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much, Papagi. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much. Zochi, thank you. Thank you. It's much appreciated. Much appreciated. And I really appreciate, your kind word. I appreciate the support and so on. But now, of course, our life is coming to an end, right? I can see that we don't have a lot of questions, and which is good, because, hey, if you don't have a lot of questions, it means that for the moment, everything seems to be okay. All right. Now, for those of you who are following me, of course, we have 2 lives, right? You have one in a different language. It just happened to be French, right? And then we have another one, of course, this one. This is actually in English, right? Of course, I have no idea what is the question. People who are asking me to answer the question, you guys have to rewrite your question. Why? Because we have a lot of interaction, a lot of comments, and it's impossible to see, and it goes very fast, for some reason. Meaning that if somebody wants an answer, what do they mean they need to do? But they need to actually rewrite the answer, the question. That make it easy to help you, okay? Make it easy to help you, because if you don't do that, then you just, putting some hurdles that are unnecessary, right? Meaning that, come on now, you guys need to do what you need to do. Thank you so much. Meaning that Nana, better type your question because we are about to end the live, meaning that type the question if need be. Otherwise, then that will be a question that could be answered, of course, um, that could be answered at the next live. All right. Okay. The new visa crackdown. Okay, that's very vague. What does that mean? The new visa crackdown. It's not, there is no such thing as that. Okay, you have to be, what does it concern? People who are overstay, yes, following the event in Boulder, Colorado, then you are the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Christine Nome, but yeah, with USCIS and ICE actually now indicated that there will be a crackdown on people who have overstayed. Okay, meaning that they will use, now they will consult the records, and by consulting the record, they will see who is an overstay, and they will come after these people. What does that mean? You know, on a practical level, it means that if you find yourself you're overstay, make sure that you have something to justify why you're here, right? Because some people are overstay, but they have an application pending. For example, people are overstay, but they have an asylum application that has not been addressed. Or maybe they married to a U.S. citizen, right? There is a lot of things, right? They have any other type of humanitarian situation that is going on. But where people are vulnerable are people who are overstay but have nothing in the system to actually justify their legal status. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's what I keep telling you. Like earlier, I was talking about employers. You have to have a plan. This is the part where you have to be proactive. If you know you're in a situation where you don't have a plan for the moment, as far as how do you going to acquire status, what status are you going to have, this is the time. You need to have a plan. Okay. And then of course, I'm just saying exactly the same thing. If you have something, an application before the service, doesn't matter that you're an overstay because you have an application, and until this application has been processed, you have the right to remain. But if, for example, the application is processed and is actually denied, and then that you actually went through the whole appeal process and just you face, denial after denial after denial, at one point the decision becomes finals. Now, when the decision becomes finals, guess what? Then, of course, you are subject to removal or deportation. You're very vulnerable to removal and deportation. That's basically how that goes, okay? We need that, be careful, be mindful about that. But we know that was expected. Again, remember, they want to hit this 3,000 people per day target, and they actually trying to do everything, between people who are overstay, between people who actually committed crimes, people who have a final order deportation. Yeah, those are the people they're going to come after. They also do that in court, trying to close cases, dismiss cases. That's where people are actually without legal status, and then they're subject to expedited removal if they don't know. But all of this, it doesn't tell you how to protect. This is the part you guys only hear what the government is saying. As far, okay, we're going to come after this person, this person, this person. But the part that you don't see, because when you see something, it's always something that you don't see. The other half is how do you defend yourself against deportation. That's the part. And then you have the full picture. That's what you don't want. This is the time where you don't want really to, I know it's not easy, to do, but you definitely don't want to be so overwhelmed, by, obviously stress and anxiety that you have no strategy. You don't know your option. You don't know what are your rights. You don't know what you're supposed to do, right? This is the part where that's not going to help you, right? That's why when you hear something, yes, they say they're going to after the overstay, the part that you don't see, yeah, because somebody who is overstay, if the person is there illegally, technically the person is actually vulnerable to deportation. Now, because somebody who is in overstay is not going to be deported just like that. they're going to have to go through the immigration court. They go into immigration court, now they'll be asking, okay, what is your defense against this deportation claim? Right? Now, the part that is stressful is what? Is the fact that people may end up in detention. Now, you end up in detention, that's going to be a challenge because if you don't have a way to protect yourself, they're going to push for that, right? For you to just be deported quicker. Because if you go in front of a judge and then they ask you, what is your relief from removal, which is basically AKA defense from removal against removal, and you have nothing. You have nothing, again, except saying, oh, the only thing that I have is I've been in the country for a long time. This is what people think. Of course, because, you have a lot of this misinformation. I'm not saying that doesn't play a role, but it's not the main. It's not only that's not going to protect you against deportation. Oh, I have children. They were born in the United States, but that's not enough. How old are your kids, right? Oh, and this and that, right? Meaning this is the part you need to know. Yes, they're going after people who are overstay. But if you have a way to protect yourself against deportation, if you have a way for you actually to have a legal status, you have the right to pursue that. The only thing that is actually clouding people's mind is ICE. But ICE, there are some situations where ICE have to wait. They cannot deport you if you have certain type of application pending. They're not talking about that because the biggest population that they're going after are the most vulnerable, the people who are seeking asylum. That's why they're closing the southern border. They're forcing people to wait for asylum in Mexico. If you come, they shut the CBP one. They're asking people to deport. They're closing the TPS. But read between the lines. There are some people that are not being listed. What do you think there is? Because these people have actually protection against deportation. See, that's the thing. When you look at things that are being said, right, you have to read between the lines. When they say overstay, not every person who is an overstay is the same. Nope, not the same. Some people, yes, they need to be concerned. But others, maybe no. Other people are overstay, but they have something that's coming. Now, don't muck the water, even if you have a way to adjust your status, by basically creating something. And this is where also things are playing. Because if you're not in that vulnerable, obviously populations such as asylum seeker, which are really the target of this, and the TPS recipient are the target of the wrath of the government, you have the others. But now the others, the only way the government can actually come and try to push, for this deportation, and if now you created a situation yourself, for example, you committed a crime. Another example, you committed fraud and misrepresentation. This make it easier for the government because the law allowed that. You did that, right? If you committed a crime, they're going to push, right? Not only not to grant you the immigration benefit that you're seeking, but then you will end up in court. But even in court, it's not over until it's over. But the thing is, when we talk about ICE cloud on judgment, because the detention conditions are challenging. But again, read between the lines. Yes, they arrested people, but do they tell you who are they releasing? Do we know how many people are being released? They're trying to open everywhere. They're trying to get, other facility to try to actually detain people. But how many people are being released? Not everybody have the same profile. Some people have a certain profile where they will go in detention, but they will be released. Why are they being released? They're being released because they have ties to their community. They're not considered a flight risk, right? They're not a danger to a community. Those are actually legal arguments for a bond hearing. See, those are the nuance. When you listen to all of that, to all this noise, sometimes you have to be cold. Let's read between the lines and see what exactly is going on here. But some people, they just arrive. They came here because they're fleeing persecution. They're more vulnerable. They've been less than 2 years. They cannot prove that they've been in the country for 2 years, right? It falls under what is called expedited removal. Now you find yourself in immigration court. Then the government is moving, saying that, yeah, they're just going to dismiss the case. Why they're doing that is just to put you back into the expedited removal category. Then ICE can move and try to remove you. But even if ICE move, and that's the thing. This is the part, that's what employees are doing. They're getting prepared. Most of people, individually, they're not prepared. That's okay. But you need to know your options. If you don't know your options, you're literally going to be in reactive mode. Everything's going to feel, it's so overwhelming, right? Because not only to find oneself to be in detention, not be able to call, people cannot call you, they have a hard time knowing how to locate you, and things go very fast because, again, you have the 3,000, that they want to show, and then the number of people that have been released. But again, where are you? Where are you? Right? What is your profile? People don't talk about it. What is your profile? Because listen to who they're not talking about. Who are they not talking about? Because you guys don't see it. Don't do that. Even if you see ICE, yes, you get ready for an ICE arrest. Yes, you get, but the thing is, how do you get ready is to know what are your options. Now, if ICE come at your door and say, okay, boom, I'm arresting you, or arresting, your family member, your loved one, what are your options against deportation? That's the one that will win the game. Because when you're in detention, you're meeting your DO, your deportation officer. What exactly is the plan? What's the game plan here? See, and that's the thing. You want to have this conversation before this happens. Yep. You want to have that before this happens. And that's why it's extremely important that you guys consider that. You have to make sure that, hello, Alina, make sure that you guys get it, okay? That's what, when you're saying that, you see a lot of things. I hope that actually, by what I'm trying to explain, don't fall prey to panic and anxiety, because that's the goal, is by design. Start thinking, who are they not talking about? Think about it. Why do you think that is? The law does not change because Congress cannot agree on anything regarding immigration. The immigration law has been the same for a long time. But there are some part here and there that can be subject to, okay, then how do you do the analysis? For example, for national interest purposes, that's a catch-all provision, right? A lot of things can get in there. Then what do? You see, that's what I'm telling you. Be mindful. Look about it. Some of you have already options. The problem, most of people are stuck into the situation they are now. They don't even realize, okay, I may have option. You don't realize that the way the system works, if you have option, then you fight deportation. That's what you have in immigration court. You see? But for example, when they say, oh, they call and they dismiss a case, 99.99%, and then you have people who are in asylum. They have asylum case. Because somebody who has an asylum case, they go to court, then they show up in court, and ICE is in the hallway. The government is like, we're moving to dismiss the case. They know perfectly that by dismissing the case, this person has nothing. Do you think that they will have the same outcome. Somebody, for example, who they married to a US citizen, they're the child of a US citizen, or either the parent of a US citizen. Do you think it's the same conversation? Of course not. The government will litigate until the end. Do you see how that works? Because when it was like in the previous administration, in case like that, if the case based on family ties, once you have, the application that has been approved by USCIS, the attorney will move to have the case dismissed. Who is moving? The defense attorney. We asking, because we know it's safe for our client. They can have their paper. Can we move out of this courtroom and then have the case, the file sent back to USCIS so my client can go and have, an interview if need be and adjust their status? What do you think happening? When it was on the previous administration, you do that. It's called prosecutorial discretion. They have certain criteria. If they agree, the judge say, yes, great, boom, 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 sign. Now, look at what's going on now. They're dismissing what type of case? Dismissing asylum cases, because they know by dismissing that, some people will find themselves in that expedited removal box. Got it? That's why, who are they not talking about? That's the question nobody's asking. That's the answer to everything you want to understand. If you know you're in the box of people that are so vulnerable, that have nothing, you have no other option, then of course you're going to be concerned, because of course the administration is pushing aggressively, right, to deport people. But they cannot change the fact that people have right, that the law is there, that somebody seeking adjustment of status, guess what? They have the right to pursue that. Yes, we've seen cases where people have interviewed. Yes, we've seen cases where they come in and they try to arrest the person. Do you know why they're doing that? Again, that's also another strategy. Because when you start, right, if you've been married less than 2 years, example, your spouse is a US citizen, you've been married less than 2 years, it means that once you apply, you're going to have an interview. Before, a few years ago, they were not doing interview anymore. They reinstated interview, meaning that now you have an interview. Until you complete the interview, you don't have a right yet, right? You're just somebody who filed the application based on marriage to a US citizen. The interview actually is for the officer to make sure that this person has a genuine relationship. If the government come and then they're like, okay, we're going to arrest this person before the interview has been completed, guess what? It stopped the process, right? It means USCIS cannot make a decision because they're going to say that we don't have the interview. You see how that goes? The law has not changed. It's just that people are looking for a way to bend the law so it applies to their policies. But now somebody who knows that, know their option, they're ready. They go. If they get arrested, they know that they're going to try to push by saying, oh yeah, you have no status. Oh yeah, you should be da. But before doing that, you're going to have to go to court. You go to court, you better be ready. And how are you going to be ready? By showing the judge that you started another application. You see how that goes? If you don't know the game, what are they doing? You need to know exactly what the law, what are the rights. But if you don't know, guess what? By the time you turn around, because you don't know exactly what are the applicable laws, then you may find yourself facing deportation. Meaning basically that's how that is. But I hope that gives you an insight about this. But I just don't want all of this to say, know your right. Okay, know your right. That's basically what this is. If you don't know your right, you will be a victim. Okay, know your right. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to have a solution. Some people will have zero solution, but it doesn't mean that you give up until the end. You never give up. Don't make it easy. You never, ever give up. You fight for your right, and then, okay, if it doesn't work, at least you try. Because what do you think about some of the people who have been sent to Sudan? And I will finish there. They were sent to Sudan. The judge said that actually they should be brought back to the United States. The government is arguing that they have no jurisdiction on them. Okay. Of course, the judge said that the judge was not convinced by the argument. Do you know that I was reading a newspaper article about it? There are some US agent, right? ICE agent currently stuck in Sudan because they're supposed to remain with the immigrants that were deported. And this was based on the judge decision. Because the judge was saying that you better make sure that nothing happened to these people. If you look also at the rest of litigation, they're saying that, yes, the people who were deported need to be brought back to the United States to exercise what is called due process. Does that mean that they will not get deported ultimately? They may, but they have the right in court. You cannot just invoke the Alien Enemy Act like the administration did and say, tough, gone. No. What does that mean? It means that you always exercise your right, even when you feel that you have zero chance. Because the best way for you to lose and to be deported is by doing nothing, and not filing, and not claiming, and not challenging your right. Why would you do that? Why? Or the thing that is happening for the moment is that people are looking at what actually in the news, and then unfortunately anxiety just takes over. People believe that they have no right. People believe that they have no power. I'm telling you, that's why you will see the letter asking you to self-deport. That's why you will go to court, you will see the letter asking you to self-deport. That's why you will receive the email asking you to self-deport. To sweeten the deal, they even offer, I think, 2,000, I believe, or 3,000. Then they say that, oh, if you do self-deport, then it will be easier for you to return. Even if you decide to leave, you need to do that, with and knowing all of your options, right? You need to have an educated choice. You need to know, okay, if I leave, these are the consequences. I may be facing a ban. I may be da. Then you look and you be like, you know what? See ya, I'm gone. Okay, that's good. But the thing that you don't want to do is just panic and then just like, just gone. But that's all I wanted to tell you. Somewhat travel. We don't answer question about travel. Absolutely not. It's even worse. And why? Because when it comes to travel, it's based on your immigration history. And everything goes. Since January 2025, everything goes. People are coming, sometimes they're facing this and they're facing that. If you guys want to travel, if you think that is necessary, then by all means, you should, right? You should definitely explore that. But that's all I can tell you. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much at the YouTube team. Thank you so much. Of course, don't forget to follow the page. Don't forget to obviously share, put the heart and everything. For those of you watching us afterward, then don't forget, right? You guys join the channel, and that way you will see us when we have our lives. Thank you so much. My name is Annie Koluko, and I will see you soon. Bye.